basically. Collectors and then model kits.
Yeah, because so like I was saying, I collect a lot of action figures anyway. So I think I don't know if it came out this year, but you know that SH Figure Arts Batman from the Flash.
Oh yeah,
it's like the new Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that he came back.
Yeah,
and
man, they made an '89 Batman.
I have it.
Yeah, and his neck doesn't turn. You gotta do like the whole.
Which to be honest, that makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah,
it's perfect. Yeah, just how the movie accurate.
Yeah, because the Todd McFarlane ones move, and I always thought they looked weird, and it didn't dawn on me until later. Oh, because
the cowl goes all the way down.
Yeah,
it's literally a shoulder piece.
I know.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, so, another one I'm looking forward to is that SH Figure Arts Wolverine from Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah,
I guess
what a
that's
time to be alive to have an X-Men SHF, right?
Yeah, I know.
That's so
man,
cool.
because I would collect the Mafex ones, but man, I cannot wait for that.
Yeah, I almost, speaking of just like, collecting things, right? The Mafex, is it Mafex? I always thought it was Mafex. Is it Mafex?
I thought it was Mafex, and then I heard people say Mafex.
Okay, well,
you know how it is.
Tomato,
yeah.
right? And then they did like the whole like Death of Superman kind of thing, right? So they have like
oh yeah, that's right.
they got
the black
steel,
suit.
They got the black suit, they got the Superboy and the leather coat and all that stuff, and I was like, do I really want to drop like $100-something a figure and get all of them? And I'm just like, I won't do it. I didn't pull the trigger because I knew once I did, then I was gonna get them all. So
that's how it works. So for me, my favorite are the robot spirits of the Gundam. Even though I do the Gunpla,
that's good because it's basically an SHF robot. Is really what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love them because they're like the older ones weren't, but these newer ones are super accurate, like the Ver anime.
Yeah.
Man, I have so many.
And the effect parts are really cool too.
So
right?
that is
the muzzle flash.
That
and
is
the
a
rockets
bonus.
and all that stuff.
It's sometimes I have like smoke effects, which is pretty cool.
That just it's a game changer. Yeah.
I know. Oh man, and but I still do the Gunpla stuff. I like that. Usually I'll get a Gunpla if a Robot Spirits version doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
So that's that. Or if people will give me some, or for instance, that new Requiem for Vengeance. The model kits are badass.
Yeah, and then they have Gundam Universe figures for
I got that first one.
Yeah.
I don't have the Zaku yet, but
I'm very partial to Zaku's. I call it the working man's mobile suit.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, because it even kind of evolved that way. Now that we get into lore, But so I know you cover more than just Gundam.
I do.
But can you think of like your favorite release this past year, 2024, Gundam related for Bandai Collect?
So I'm gonna have to go with the Requiem for Vengeance Zaku because I just like how it just looks. It looks dirty. It looks like a metal shop class in high school put it together kind of thing. Like it has like that sort of that vibe to it.
I know.
With the different colors happening, like it's like when you're in school and that one kid has that older car that's supposed to be blue, but maybe it's got like a white side door.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of something.
Did you watch
about
the show?
I did, yeah.
And so it's cool that they actually showed that happening.
Exactly.
Where they put this stuff, and it's almost like an actual model kit in a way.
100%, I really dug that about it.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
And I like seeing that sort of that different side to it. I got like a very much like a All Quiet on the Western Front meets Jason Voorhees kind of vibe, right?
Oh,
you got to see this other side of the story. Here's this pilot that I would have always classified her as quote unquote the bad guy, but she's got a kid at home and she's trying to get back to her kid, and it's like, well, don't make me like this character.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I think they did a good job with it because, they've sometimes showed the Xeon side to sympathize with, but I loved the reactions because people were so angry how it ended, and it's like, well, this is a Xeon soldier, and I love it. But yeah, I got to say those Gunpla that came out, and even the Gundam Universe, like that was pretty quick to come out. I was thinking that would take like 6 months or something.
Right. Yeah, timing on that's always kind of weird, right? Because it's always weird when there's figures involved with a property that has a movie or a show because of spoilers, you know?
Exactly.
Like specifically like if maybe a character you didn't know was going to have that weapon or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like if Captain America would have came with Thor's hammer, you would have been like, well, wait a minute, what's going on, or things like that, it can be spoilers, and that happens in this industry, and you have to be ready for it. So.
It is funny to think because whenever the show, a game, or something comes out, it's like, oh, I want to have the thing to collect, and sometimes you can't. You got to wait. Like the Wolverine.
Exactly.
I can't wait
it's like
to
a whole
that.
year afterwards
I know.
when it's all said and done.
But what's cool? I love the metal build. I have the High New Gundam. And what's interesting, I don't know if you know background on this, but I just wanted to say, like, in the game GBO2, you know, Gundam Battle Operation 2 on PlayStation, they released the model to be the Hainu. And when I was looking at the model, I noticed the way it was modeled, you could see like the mold lines, the That's so cool. It's almost like they used that as reference,
right?
Which I thought was a good idea because that's like my favorite representation. But that's kind of neat. How often do you see the different teams being like, oh, we're going to have this game, so let's make this figure. Oh, we're going to release this figure, so let's add this to the game.
So that's a conversation that I'm never really involved in until it's about
time to market it.
Yeah. So otherwise, I would love to be a part of that conversation. But there's one of the things about the toy industry is and video game industry is everything's played pretty close to people's chests, right?
It seems like
a lot of secrets. You don't want stuff to get out. So once the concept has already been approved and all that stuff, that's when I start to learn about it.
So then, do you know how to pronounce the new Gundam show?
Okay.
You don't have to if you don't.
No, it's funny you ask.
Okay.
Because we were having this discussion at the office on Tuesday. We're like, okay, so how do you guys want to take a stab at saying that? So like, I've heard several versions. I've been calling it just GQ because it's a lot easier to do.
That's actually a great one.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, let's call it GQ for short. I've heard G-Quacks.
Yeah.
I've heard SIG-X.
Yeah.
SIG-X is probably ultimately how it's supposed to be.
I think so, because on the Japanese website, I was reading it for one of my videos, and it showed that above.
Yeah.
And I was like,
SIG-X,
okay, that's probably what it's supposed to be. Yeah. I'm glad you said that.
I like GQ, but
I do like GQ, actually.
I will call it whatever I'm supposed to call it. But
that's funny GQ's because even the name Gundam, the way we say it in English, isn't even the Japanese pronunciation. So it's always up to interpretation.
You got any of those Gundams floating around?
I know. Like the original dub of the original show, I think they were saying Gundam. That's hard to market.
Yeah, it's always fun. Like even during, I think during the Olympics one year, when it was in Japan, they were talking about the announcers. They didn't know what Gundam was. Like the U.S. announcers. So like, what's that robot?
Yeah,
thing over
a transformer.
There, my mom's like, "Is that an Optimus Prime? Like, what is that?"
It is crazy because what's crazy is I didn't really get into Gundam until a few years ago, around the time I started the channel. And I'm 41, so I
brag about
should have. No, it's like I should have. Well, and here's the thing, because I should have known Gundam earlier, like Toonami and all that stuff.
Yeah, so like in the late 90s, Gundam Wing showed up on Toonami. That's when I learned about it.
See, and this is on me. Like, I think there was this thing about anime. And I just didn't watch anime.
Sure, and that's fair, because I'm older than you. I'm 44.
Okay.
And my half birthday is December 30th. It's coming up. I'm almost 44 and a half. But same boat. When I saw Gundam Wing, I was like, what is this? This looks pretty cool. And I was talking about this earlier with G.I. Joe. When we were kids, if one of those rattlers got shot out of the sky, you saw a parachute.
Yep.
In Gundam, no parachute. You're like, I hope that guy's okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because what I think has got me into Gundam was like, I was into Star Wars a whole lot.
Sure.
But to me, Gundam just seemed a little more mature, like how you're mentioning.
Some hardcore themes.
And I was like, okay, this is more my thing then. But what's interesting was, I remember on the Dreamcast back in like 99 or whatever, they came out with a Gundam game called Rise from the Ashes. Now, I remember I just wanted a mech game. I didn't know what Gundam was. I buy this game and I'm always calling it.
It's a good way to learn.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, look, Side Story 0079. And I loved that game, one of my favorite games, and didn't realize it was Gundam until a few years ago.
Isn't that crazy how that works? So I have a similar story with Dragon Ball. So I lived in a military town. My dad was in the Navy. I grew up in a town called 29 Palms, out in the middle of the desert. And this kid just came in from Japan, and he had a Super Famicom game that was a Dragon Ball game. And we put it in my Super Nintendo. We were able to do that because you just had to, break the little clips and it worked right in. Anyway, I'm playing this Dragon Ball game. It's all in Japanese. I have no idea what it's saying. I'd never seen Dragon Ball before. Toonami wasn't a thing yet. And I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. And it had a split screen because you can fly and you could back away and you could do like your Kamehameha, or whatever. Just
don't worry, I wouldn't know.
And your beams hit each other, and then you got to tap the buttons really fast, like the A and B, to fight over the beam. Yeah. And then if you lose, then your character gets annihilated, right? And then with, I'm watching this, and I'm playing it, and I get the hang of it, and I get really good at it. Fast forward like 5 or 6 years later, and then it's on Toonami. I'm like, man, this looks very familiar. Like, where have I seen this before? And then as soon as I see like Goku, I'm like, oh my God, this is that game. And my buddy let me keep that game too. So like, I still have it to this day.
Wow.
And that was my first exposure to Dragon Ball, was like, oh my
what
God.
platform was that on?
It was on Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, basically.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so I still have it.
Oh, that is awesome.
It's so badass, yeah. And it goes all the way up to the Cell games. And it ends with like you defeating Cell.
Oh,
and so it ended up being a spoiler for me, because when I finally got to that, I was like, well, here's where he goes to King Kai's planet and blows up. But as a teenager, seeing Cell get all fat and big and then go to this other planet and then explode, it made zero sense whatsoever. I'm like, what is happening right now?
Yeah,
this was all in Japanese.
But that's interesting, yeah, because even with Gundam, like if you're getting into it, you might not realize, like if you saw Wing and then you're watching something Universal Century,
right?
Like
that's different timelines. That's why this graphic is very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And that new show, it's interesting that it's UC but an alternate timeline, which they haven't done it like that before. Usually it's an alternate universe, but now it's like an alternate timeline, which that's gonna be cool. And so that's another thing, because going back to keeping things to their chest, like they just announced this new GQ, I like that, and then they have it here. To look at, like,
isn't that neat? Yeah, it's like the first time
it's just the other day they announced it and I get to see it like 5 inches from me.
It helps to see it up close, right?
Yeah, it does.
Images, that's the thing, like we're in a pre-order business, right? Where we show off a figure and all you have to go off of is one image and that's all there is to it. And then a couple months later, 3 months later, 6 months later, whatever, you have it in your hand. And I do think that that's interesting, that we live in this world now where it's like, I see this thing, I like it, I have to buy it, then I gotta wait for it.
I know.
And like there was a time where, you would walk into like a Target and you would see a toy aisle that was loaded with all kinds of cool toys, and you would see something for the first time, be like, oh my God, this is so cool, I have to have it. And now we see it months in advance, and then we wait for a brown box to show up from Amazon.
Right, I know.
It takes the magic away a lot.
It does.
During the pandemic, I was like, I forgot I even ordered that.
Yeah, that happens all the time. It's interesting, speaking about Target though, it's cool how lately they've transitioned to where, like in the electronics section.
Yeah, there's that whole collectible wall.
Yeah, and so that got me into collecting Godzilla recently. I've always kind of liked Godzilla, but never really gotten to collecting, but they have those $25, Bandai ones they're kind of like a Gundam universe, but
just a 6-inch figure.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool that they have these here. And then I went down the rabbit hole, SH Monster Arts. Oh my God.
It's a whole nother ballgame,
there was on the Godzilla.com website, I think it was, they were doing a Black Friday special where they had old warehouse inventory, and it had one of the older SH Monster Arts.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I grabbed it. Because like on eBay, they're so expensive, but it was under 100 on, and I was like, oh, I gotta get it.
Gotta get it.
And there's even some, the vendors have here, but the prices, just because they're, the second hand.
And that's the thing, it's an imported toy, right? So, I mean, there's only so many. It's not like there's 50,000 of them all. It's just at all the Targets all over the country.
I know.
It's a very short supply at the end of the day. If you miss that window, you got to wait for a reissue, maybe in a couple years or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Be. And if it is a reissue, what's different about it? Is it a different paint scheme? Is it have different weapons or accessories? Whatever.
Yeah,
there's always something.
Well, good question. So, like I said, I'm a huge fan of the Robot Spirits, and I pretty much get them all, anything Universal Century. And even on like P Bandai, I noticed they will re-release them. And is that like telling that they're popular? Because sometimes it's hard for me to understand. Like, I can't imagine people spending as much as they do on Robot Spirits, even though I do it.
Right.
But like, it's always hard to find other people that are into it.
So I think what's important is like something that you just became, I don't know if victim is the right word, but a proponent of was Godzilla. So you just got into collecting Godzilla. So now is that fair to you that missed out on everything that came out before that? No, but that's the nature of the business. So now it's a good chance for new collectors to get stuff that came out before they got into it. Okay,
that's cool then. Because I know people complain about P Bandai, but I find it to be like the GM Spartan. That was a high grade that everyone wanted. And it would sell out, and then they put it back on.
Right.
And then they put like 3 different times. So it seems like at the end of the day, and is that kind of the same thing? They're like, okay, we have this whole catalog of things we could release.
Yeah, so they're I mean, I'm sure there's a science to it ultimately, but they got to be able to make, there's only so many kits you can make a year kind of thing, right? So they just have to be strategic about,
because isn't there like a cost of like renting or the warehouse that's manufacturing There's like costs with that, cost of manufacturing if it's new tooling.
Sure, and yeah, the technology has evolved a lot when it comes to model kits, right? So they got to churn them all out. And they have like a delivery month of when they plan on doing all these things. So there is logistics behind it. And then when it comes to Premium Bandai, by nature, it's usually a pre-order business, and so it's like a made-to-order. If there's a figure that, let's say it's an obscure one, right? Like maybe not everyone that's into Gundam wants this particular one, so we'll only make as many as people pre-order, kind of thing. That is, something that exists.
The Big Zam, that $500 Robot Spirits Big Zam, like that's amazing. But it also seems very niche.
Sure,
but it's still up for pre-order, which is pretty cool. So I don't know if that means, and I guess even Bandai's trying to figure out, is this popular or
So in the fine print, it usually says like it's a pre-order thing, and that it's made to order, but there is a possibility that we meet our quantity threshold, and then they'll stuff close.
Because with how big it is and it has electronics, they don't want to overproduce,
right? And then just take a bath and that sort of thing.
No, so I do appreciate that, because it's like sometimes how else could you get something that interesting?
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of why I'm actually a pretty big advocate for our friends over at Hasbro that do the Hasbro
Pulse,
right?
HasLab
stuff.
Yeah,
so I mean, people can complain about scalpers all day long, but with HasLab, if you want it, you order it, and if you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
But if you didn't order it, you usually have whatever, like 60 days, 45 days to buy this thing, right? So I mean, you have time. It's not going to charge you until it closes, right? So I think. And it doesn't take up space at a retailer, like some of those, like the Hiss tank. I bought the Hiss tank. If that thing was sitting on a shelf at Target, it'd have one on the shelf.
I've been seeing those, even at GameStop.
It's like you might as well capitalize on that, and it costs nothing. It's not going to take up real estate at a retailer because it's so big and stupid, and you're not going to worry about third parties because you're just going to buy it yourself, whatever. So I mean, I think it's a good model.
Yeah, I think it balances what you were talking about earlier, where we're not going to the store to buy the things, because some things you want, the idea of something to exist, it's not practical to be in a store.
And as an 80s kid, I loved play sets, like Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain, the Bolden Hill play set from Mask, all that really cool stuff.
Even with the HasLab doing the Jabba's Palace and all that.
Exactly. The Cantina, all that stuff.
They have the Cantina now,
And then it's modular, so if you only wanted one little section, then you're ready to rock and roll. So I mean, that's so cool that they're doing stuff like that. And, I would love to see Gundam play sets. Mega House did do the spaceship, the hangar. And which was perfect for high grades. It was perfect. And that's awesome. I love play sets.
Me too.
The whole diorama, the immersion of it, I think that's so cool. But is it cost effective? Absolutely not.
That's a good point, because I bought, the Robot Spirits came out with the hangar deck, and there was different ones, and they were so expensive, but probably because they probably didn't or couldn't produce a lot,
right?
And so, excuse me, I ended up buying them on eBay or whatever, and being it. But I would love if there was more play sets for Gundam, but I kind of get it how it's still kind of obscure and niche anyway, even though it's a huge IP.
Right.
But to have 4 Robot Spirit, or they could do it for Gunpla, and they kind of do anyway. So Mega House, you brought that up. What's the relationship with Bandai? Is it?
So it's a Bandai brand.
So it is. Oh, okay. Because I collect those. They remind me of 80s toys. The action figures that they made for, I don't know if you saw those, they have the Zeon Soldiers, Federation's Amuro.
And they come with a million accessories and stuff. There's even the coffee cups and stuff. Yeah.
I love
that. So badass.
I know. And they have
the Char, and he's got there's the desk and his little handgun. It's so cool.
I know. And they had a car too that came with one.
There's the Jeep thing, and then there was the 3 soldiers.
Yep.
And then there's different ranks and stuff.
And they're re-releasing them in single card backs, old school.
That's so cool.
I know. Yeah. So that's cool that's under Bandai.
Yes.
So, because I didn't know if it's the company goes to Bandai, it's hey, can we license to...
Right, yeah. So Mega House is a Bandai brand, and those figures, they were in 2021 or 2022. Yeah. Oh my God, so cool.
I know, and I'm glad they're re-releasing them, and they're doing that.
I think there's even a briefcase.
There's
briefcase. I remember the cups, the pistols.
Yeah, they have the jetpacks.
The backs, so cool,
And it's so crazy. I did a thing where... I like to keep my stuff on shelves, and the nature of the figures, it's hard to keep them standing up.
Yeah.
So I started I don't know if this is good for resale. I started drilling magnets into the bottom and then making magnet stands for them.
That's perfect.
But I love that because I like to have them all set up and stuff. But because those would be good to have a play set. You know what would be ultimate? Is somehow they figure out how to do a articulated action figure that can go in a mobile suit.
Right, but scaling is always so tricky, right?
It's like how, you know Diaclone? Are you familiar with that?
No.
It's another Japanese thing that Transformers came from, where they have little articulated figures that go inside.
Oh yeah, that's
It's like,
cool.
I wonder if...
I mean, the only articulation that, I mean, whatever, even if your figure is like this big, you're still gonna, if you have an...
It's gonna be limited.
It's gonna be hard to make, for one. But I mean, if it was like a 3-inch figure that had elbows and knee joints and the head could turn and a little bit of the crunch to get it so it's sitting down or whatever, that, logistically speaking, that would be hard.
I know.
And it would have to come with the mobile suit, probably.
Right. Yeah, because like I think that's an example of the ultimate idea for a collectible, but the logistics of that is just too insane.
Because even when you look at like that Sosby that they did and the new Gundam for the metal structure. Yeah, the characters, the little guys that are on the hanger, they're still tiny. They're little bitty dudes,
Yeah, I know.
So you could lose any one of those at any time, but to represent the scale, that's kind of what needs to be done. And I was like the one with the guy that's on like the little rubber tube, or it's like a little bendy thing. So
I love that.
So like he's like floating in zero gravity, sort of blow torching the Gundam and whatever.
Yeah, I've got that on one of my, I think it's the Mark II Master Grade. It comes with the little bendy wires to put the guys in.
I mean, that stuff's so cool.
That is.
But yeah, scaling is a problem. One of the things I liked about, what was the series that had like the Penelope and...
Hathaway.
Oh, I love that. Just a poor guy's trying to get to work and there's these mobile suits fighting in the middle of the street. And
I know.
Like, you're still going to show up for your shift today, though, right? It's like,
that's great stuff.
I'm a sucker for like the tactical, like the espionage of it all. Like I like when there's a spy. I like
because it's
gadgets.
James Bond like that Hathaway.
Exactly.
I liked that.
So I mean, I can watch mobile suits fight all day, but I do like the human component where you do get to see that they are, fighting for their lives here.
That's true.
They're undercover. They're doing something. They could die. They can get caught at any minute. And I think that's, for me, that's where the real edge of your seat action happens.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what morphed my love for Star Wars to Gundam was. It was a little more serious with what the characters are going through. I always use this analogy. When Luke blows up the Death Star and they're celebrating.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Amuro kills one pilot and he's like, freaking out. Yeah. He's like, I can't believe I killed, and I'm like, oh, I love that. And then it makes that action more intense.
Yeah, he's going to be, he's damaged. Yeah. He's going to need some mental repairs, right?
I know.
There's a whole nother element to it. And I think that's why I love Star Wars too. Super Star Wars fan.
Same here.
I can recognize the Empire is probably the best one, but as a kid, Return of the Jedi was my favorite.
Same here.
When he gets this green lightsaber, and I'm like, they can be green. Oh my god, I just love Luke Skywalker, and that was the one for me.
Flipping off Jabba's thing.
Oh my god,
like,
so cool. Giving the signal, getting his lightsaber, I was like, oh my god. But with Rogue One, which I thought was really cool, is when they're in the marketplace, and then there's just guerrilla warfare. There's rockets going off, there's explosions. People were just going shopping that day, and now they are not coming home. That's some heavy hitting stuff.
And what's cool about that was it was directed by Gareth Edwards. I'm real big into filmmaking, and he did that Godzilla 2014, I think, where he added that same element to it. And it's interesting. I always thought he would be great for a Gundam movie, but Jim Mickle, I think is his name. I don't know if you heard, they announced the new director for the Gundam movie. His name's Jim Mickle. Never saw anything he did. There's this thing on Netflix called Sweet Tooth. Never saw it before, but I started it, and it starts where there's disasters that happen while people are doing their daily things in their lives. I'm like, okay, here we go.
It becomes relatable. It becomes real all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
Star Wars never felt real to me until that moment where I could turn on my news at any day and see a car bomb go off, or some tragic thing happening somewhere in the world, and they started their day just like I did. They got up, they brushed their teeth, they got dressed, they went to the store, they didn't come home.
Yeah,
and that's some really hard hitting stuff. And
I know.
Gundam, I think, really nails that when it comes to being grounded. Yeah, it's floating in space, and there's mobile suits, and there's beam sabers and things like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these people are going out and they're not coming home.
Yeah,
and that's,
I know, it's crazy.
That's some scary shit.
Especially being in the void of space, the emptiness.
It's already terrifying.
Yeah.
Humans don't belong in space. There's just radiation waiting to nuke you as soon as you go up there. And it's like, it's not a safe place.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, that's what I think is the most relatable part of it. You know?
Yeah. So what lines do you collect from the Bandai Collect stuff?
Sure. So, Figure Arts. I like SH Figure Arts.
Do you have the Star Wars ones?
I have 2, and I gave one away. So I went to Japan for the first time last November for the Tamashii Nation event. I went, as we were in Akihabara, I swung by the Tamashii store. I picked up my Luke Skywalker, and
Which one?
It's the Mandalorian Season 2 finale Luke Skywalker.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Which, to me, was like peak, like so cool. Like I'm literally crying, man. 40 years old, dude, I'm crying watching that.
I cried too, dude. I know what you mean.
As soon as I saw the X-Wing, I'm like,
it's
no way.
I know. Oh man, even thinking about it, it's
like
coming
Red
back.
5,
but that was like, what they had is like the ultimate form, what we always wanted to see after Return of the Jedi.
And he's doing some real Sith shit, dude. Like when he's like just like choking and pulling, I'm like, dude. You are your father's son. And what's interesting about that is even when in Return of the Jedi with the Gamorrean guards, he's choking them.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan would have been like,
no,
it's not the droid you're looking for, you know? And he's like,
and if it was during,
person.
if it's during the prequels, he would have been reported to the council. And he wouldn't have, you know, all that stuff. So it's cool to look back and think how badass Luke was being a good guy, but knowing when he could use the dark powers.
So that was a very wonderful moment for me in Star Wars was that finale. But like, so I got that figure, and then I got a Vader. A buddy of mine actually has one of the largest like Vader collections, like from figures throughout like Star Wars history kind of thing. He collects card backs from different countries. That's what he does. So his specialty is Darth Vader, but from other countries.
Oh, that's cool.
So I got him an SHF Vader.
Oh, nice.
And so I had it in my possession for a while, but now it is his. I never opened it, because of like the pandemic and all that stuff, we never saw each other too often.
Oh,
so, and then we had a D&D group, and I was just going to give it to him then, but then we kept switching to remote D&D stuff.
Oh,
so I'm like, dude, I just got to give you this figure.
Yeah, I know.
It was originally like a Christmas present because it was November, and then it was a birthday present because his birthday's in February, and then it was just fine, whatever, just take it. Yeah. It's yours. But so I collect, short answer was SHF.
Okay, that's cool.
And Gashapon. I like Gashapon too.
Yeah, I like the mobile suit ensemble. And normally I don't care for that stuff, but it reminds me of when I was a kid and go to Walmart, and you know the gumball machines would have these, and I think it was normally Robotech or Macross or whatever at the time. I didn't, but it reminds me of that. But I like how you build them; they're articulated.
Yeah, got little joints and stuff.
I went and grabbed one while I was here.
Yeah, so I actually want to introduce you to one of the Gashapon employees over there, Marco.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the specialists over there. I'd like you to meet him.
Okay, yeah, we could do that. And
what time is it now?
We're at that time. Let me think if there's any final things. I don't think so. Yeah, I got...